All right, my friends, let's see if this does it. I'm waiting for the stream to fire up across the internet. Let's see if this is... Oh, there it is. Looks like it's working. Let's see if this is going to continue to work for me here. We are broadcasting. It looks like we're live now. Okay. All right. So let me just get my bearings straight here for a quick minute because I totally botched whatever I'm trying to work on here. Let me make sure that locals can hear me. Locals, if you're out there, let me know that you can hear me just before I swap on over there. Locals, you good? We good? Nice background bunker. Yes, I'm going to explain that here in a minute. I'm going to give you all an update on what's going on. But before we do, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We have judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice, and it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And we're grateful that you are here and with us today, working with us as we're bumbling through some of our technical difficulties. I'll explain what's going on here in a minute. But before I do, let me give you an explanation about what we're talking about today, because there's a lot of goodness that we have to get into. We're going to start the show by talking about this vaccine hesitancy, this Biden administration effort to really go out there and try to encourage a bunch of Americans to go get vaccinated. They've been saying that the numbers aren't really where they want them to be. And so they've got, a lot of people out there sort of, wrapping their arms around this problem to try to get people vaccinated. And so we're going to talk about what's going on here, because last week on Friday, Jenn Psaki over there at the White House, along with President Biden, they kind of were scapegoating Facebook, saying, hey, we got to get on these social media companies for really putting out a lot of dangerous information, harmful information. And so they were kind of, putting the needle right in Facebook's back. And then Joe Biden came out today, sort of walked that back a little bit. And so we're going to hear from Fox's Peter Doocey was asking Jenn Psaki a little bit about what the White House strategy is going to be. And so we're going to hear from the White House about what they're going to do. Donald Trump also came out over the weekend and released a press release that is kind of needling the Biden administration. And so we're going to go through some of the mismanagement, some of the I would say, the improper messaging, the mismessaging coming out of the Biden administration. So we're going to talk a lot about that. And then we're going to change gears and talk about what's going on with Edward Snowden. He posted over the weekend a tweet that is linking over to The Guardian. The Guardian came out and they are telling us that this NSO Group, this Israeli cybersecurity group, is now working with all of these different countries and these different militaries and organizations that essentially they're selling spy tools to these different countries, and these spy tools are being used to go and monitor world leaders and humanitarian people and journalists and other whistleblowers. And so very, very scandalous stories breaking out right in front of us. And then lastly, we're going to talk about what came out of the NSA today, CISA today, the Cyber Intelligence Security Administration, and the FBI. They are all coming out here and confirming that China is responsible for a lot of the hacks and a lot of these cybersecurity problems that the United States has been having for some time. So we're going to take a look at a new press release that came out from all of our intelligence agencies. We're also going to look at a leaked video that came out from the CCP, from the Chinese Communist Party. It's a military video where they're talking about nuking Japan. And I don't mean like a deterrence type of a nuke. It's like, if you think about even offending us slightly, if you don't hold the door open for us, we're going to nuke you into the Stone Age. We are going to nuke you until we're out of nukes. And I was watching this video this weekend and I was thinking, oh, wow, this is Okay, that's one way to approach international diplomacy. So we're going to talk about that here and more. If you want to be a part of the show, the way to do that is to head on over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where everybody is in there chatting away. We've got Lavoisier is over there. We've got Joe Snow. We've got Farmer's Daughter number 4. And we have Want to Know is there, along with Edon Tess. Over on YouTube, we've got Stace the Case. We've got Patriot Capital Taurus. We've got Riptor the Destroyer and Fill Up, and some others are over there as well. And so you can see here, I've got multiple screens now where I can see a couple different chats going at the same time. And because what I did is I am in the same location where I was broadcasting previously, but what happened was I just moved all of my equipment, I reversed it. So if you recall, remember the old setup? We had all the screens back there, sort of 4 screens, and it sort of looked like I was in a spaceship a little bit. That was all tucked away right there in that corner. And you can see some of the damage that I did this weekend when I was ripping off the spaceship plywood, whatever those plastic things were. I pulled those off the wall, and in doing so, ripped out all of the front of the drywall off there. So it's just a little bit of, the paper that comes off there. So what I'm going to do, of course, is make that background look a lot better, so you don't have to look at this semi-constructed, looks like our law firm's falling apart, but I assure you it's not. It's brand new. It's great. But what I'm doing here, of course, is tinkering, because that's what I do. I never really get satisfied with anything. So what I want to do is continue to sort of, modify my recording studio. And I want to show you this additional thing that I've been working on. It's a little extra feature. So now I've got a second camera angle. So for those of you in content creation, I think everybody really should think about, getting your voice out there one way or the other, whether it's writing or making videos. But what I did is if you recall, I had all those screens behind me. And my thought process was, when I'm creating my videos and we're doing these live streams, I would be able to broadcast one direction and then turn around and use the screens. And then I would kind of create this workflow that would be very productive for me. Didn't actually work out that way. So I reversed all the screens. I just flipped the desk around. Now I've got all those screens here, which means when I'm live streaming, I can see a bunch more stuff, which is just super cool. But it also means that I've got to fix the background. And I've got to, figure out what I'm doing, because I tried to use a different stream software, and obviously that's why I'm late today. So I'm not going to do that tomorrow, but I am learning, and we're going to continually improve. One of the cool things that we've got going on here, somebody said over there, Zuck said, B camera. That's right, Zuck, you're on it. So I've got camera number 2. Now, I'm going to warn you, this is not a good camera angle because this is not set up appropriately, but I've got camera 2. So I can say camera 1, and if I flub something in the middle of my recording, then rather than doing one of those bizarre jump cuts where you kind of zoom in on the face and zoom out on the face, all those really kind of things that YouTubers do, I can just cut over to camera 2. I can just go camera 1, camera 2, which pops me over here. Now you'll notice that it's pretty bad, right? I've got a light right there along with my beverages over here. And so it's not really ideal, but when I'm recording, then I can just sort of flip over here and just transition. And then of course I can just boom, transition right back. And then I will be in camera 1 again. And so I can switch between a number of different things. And I can also show you what's on my screen a little bit. And so yes, I know we've got the white balances off. Everybody knows that I am so bad with colors, and so I'm going to be working on those. But we are playing around with some stuff. We're going to have some fun with it, but that's what's going on. That's why everything is a little bit messy back there. I'm going to get it fixed. Thank you for your understanding on all of that. But enough of the background. Let's get into the news of the day. Before we do, quick reminder, if you want to be a part of the show, it's over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Of course, this is the forum that you can use if you want to ask a question. And another reminder that the super chats are also now available, but I don't think that I have them integrated into my stream. So if you want to ask those, I don't think that I can actually see them on the screen, but I certainly can read them if you submit them. So either way, whatever you want to do. Yeah, so Jenny B says, enough with it, get on already, which I intend to do right now. So thank you for indulging me on all of that. Let's get into the news of the day. Vaccine hesitancy is the new term that we're hearing a lot from the White House. Everybody's hesitant about it. We just don't know what to do. What's going on? I'm so confused. Help me. Somebody answer my questions. I need more information. Or it might be that maybe the information that people are getting is not really satisfying them. And so maybe the White House is going to get out there and help solve this for us and get us to the numbers that they claim we need to be at. And so this conversation has been happening all weekend, been between the White House and many other people sort of battling back and forth about where the problem is. Remember that Joe Biden came out and set some pretty hard terms that he wanted to hit. When his administration came in, he said, we want, a certain number of vaccines being given every single day. We want to get a certain number of people vaccinated by July 4th, and on and on and on. They had all these targets. Well, they're falling behind on the targets. And so now that we're going to start to see some finger pointing going around multi-different directions. And of course, that started to happen last week when we were off the show. They didn't even, they came out and we were already broadcasting, but they were saying some pretty interesting things over towards Facebook. And they were trying to scapegoat certain people and say, this is the reason why this isn't working out for us. And you'll notice this, that, well, let's take a headline over here from the Daily Mail. Biden's Surgeon General defends the CDC's easing of the mask rules, blames social media. Okay, that's the problem right there. Blames social media for COVID misinformation, saying it's costing people their lives, and slams Facebook for not doing enough to combat it. Okay, so Facebook is the problem. It's not anything else. It's Facebook. We want Facebook to get out there and start fixing things. So we have the Surgeon General. He's doubling down. We're going to talk through most of this. But the big part where, the big area where I wanted to start, of course, was some of the clips that we heard last week. These were pretty provocative clips because we have a couple things happening here. Number one, the White House blaming Facebook for, allowing misinformation to percolate. But then really the bigger concern is, what are the consequences of that? What happens? What are we supposed to do naturally as a society if Facebook is responsible for all of these deaths? Let's say that we take the premise from the White House saying that they are responsible for more deaths. What are we supposed to do about that then? Does that mean that we have to sort of, start limiting speech? Of course that's what it means, because we want to not kill people. We want people to survive and stay alive. And so if Facebook is allowing the proliferation of dangerous and harmful information, somebody has to do something about that. Guess who's in charge? Oh, the White House is. So maybe they've got a solution for us. So I've got two clips for you we want to start off with. Here is Jenn Psaki. This was last week on Friday, and she was in the White House talking about information, and largely the idea that information is killing people, that this is going to be responsible for actual deaths in our society. So let's listen in and see what Jenn has to say. Oh, hold on one second. Let me swap the sound over. As I mentioned, my everything is a little bit off here today, so let's do that again.
We're not in a war or a battle with Facebook. We're in a battle with the virus. And the problem we're seeing that our Surgeon General elevated just last week is that disinformation traveling through a range of mediums. Some of them are a range of social media platforms. Some of them are media. Some of them are through the mouths of public officials. That bad information, inaccurate information about vaccines is killing people.
Whoa. That information is killing people. It's almost like Facebook is sort of the middleman. Somebody's posting information on their platform and they're allowing it to happen. They're not moderating that content. They're not, acting like a publisher, or they're not, censoring enough information. And so that's resulting in people actually dying. Information is killing people, is what she said. So there you go, Zuckerberg. And, I guess you're a murderer now. Let's see if that wasn't quite clear enough for you. Let's listen to Joe Biden. Joe Biden, on the way out to the helicopter out by the White House, came out and stopped in front of the press. And the press came out and they asked him a very simple question. Jenn Psaki was just in there in the White House, and she said something to the effect like, social media is killing people. What do you have to say about that there, Joe? And watch Joe Biden. It actually makes me kind of sad to watch this, but he has a really difficult time even sputtering out these sentences. Tell me if you see it. It reminds me of the scene. So remember in the scene in The Matrix when Neo is speaking with Agent Smith, and he says, I want a phone call. I know I have a right to a lawyer. Give me my phone call. And Agent Smith says something like, how are you going to call your lawyer if you're unable to speak? Neo goes, what are you talking about? And then the thing kind of comes over his mouth, and he can't sputter out any words because he's all blocked because he's got the Matrix face mask on. So that happened, and now Joe Biden kind of looks like that. It's either that he's got the Matrix face mask, or he has marbles in his mouth. I don't know what it is, but he has a very difficult time sputtering this out. Let's see if you can see it along with me. Here he is, Joe Biden, our president.
What's your message to platforms like Facebook?
They're killing people. Look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated. And they're killing people.
What's your message?
Yikes. Okay. They're killing people. They're the only the new talking point is the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated. So he's got like two things that he can sputter out there, and he's just really having a difficult time. So not too good. But then he came out today and he's sort of walking that back. So I'm not going to go through this, but Facebook came out and they said, whoa, did you just call us a bunch of murderers? In fact, here over at Facebook, we have been peddling as much COVID banners and buttons and profile things, and we're reminding you about 100 times a day every time you're on our platform. You sure you didn't get vaccinated? If they could shove a needle through the phone into your forehead at Facebook, they would do that. But the fact that Joe Biden came out and his administration are saying that they're kind of a part of the problem is kind of lunacy, because every time you go on there on any one of their platforms, it's like COVID mania nonstop. So they were unhappy about that. They've been saying, listen, Zuckerberg was actually emailing Dr. Fauci early on in the pandemic saying, what can we do? Let me know. Let me know how we can help. We're going to put the banners and everything everywhere. So obviously they're a little bit upset about it. So they posted this big long thing. I'm not going to go through it because it's Facebook propaganda. But here is Joe Biden, of course, walking that back a little bit today. Here he is. Let's get this clip rolled. There it is.
Facebook isn't killing people. These 12 people are out there giving misinformation. Anyone listening to it is getting hurt by it. It's killing people.
It's killing people.
It's bad information. My hope is that Facebook, instead of taking it personally that somehow I'm saying Facebook is killing people, that they would do something about the misinformation, the outrageous misinformation about the vaccine. That's what I meant.
Yeah, so do something about the information, right? What can they possibly do? Delete it, right? So it's calls for censorship. And, this was a big problem, of course, on Friday, because what we're hearing is the White House essentially, kind of mandating over to Facebook that you are responsible for the deaths of Americans. If you're a business owner, I don't care. Facebook is as big as Facebook is, and we all know who really kind of is in charge of a lot of these issues. I really don't think that Zuckerberg is too, paranoid that he's going to be charged with murder. But on a philosophical level, right, if you're Mark Zuckerberg and you've built this massive national organization, and you have the president of the United States coming out and implying that you're facilitating, you're sort of the mediator for a bunch of deaths, even though you have bent over backwards over the last 18 months to make your platforms almost unusable with your COVID nonsense. And now to sort of, we're seeing thanks for nothing, really, from the Biden administration. So now he's walking that back a little bit. The big concern I have with this is the federal government coming on to any business and essentially saying, you're responsible for committing crimes or facilitating the commission of crimes, or you're responsible for deaths in this country. What happens when that happens? You bring the Justice Department down on any entity like that, and you bring the hammer of the government, the U.S. government, to come down and crack the skulls of these places. So that is, peacefully. I mean, legally. What's happening there is you have the federal government weighing down heavily upon a company, and I don't think that's appropriate, any which way. I also don't think that censorship is appropriate in any which way, even if the information is, let's say, less than accurate. Okay, people are supposed to make up their own minds. When we create this little bubble-wrapped society where everything that happens is supposed to be sort of vetted by somebody else. Every time you step foot and cross the street, we got to check with your regulator to make sure that no traffic's coming down the road. That's nonsense, right? People, in my opinion, should be taking more personal responsibility for information. I think that a lot of the bad information would be weeded out if people were a little bit more used to having to think for themselves. When we eliminate the need for people to think for themselves because we promise them that the government's going to do it, we have buildings falling over. Oh, it's regulated, right? No, we have regulations, we have permits. They got permitted and we get inspections every 40 years. Guess what happens? Building's gone, right? 100 people dead. So when we are demanding or sort of requiring that people don't have to think anymore because the government's going to take care of it, that becomes a problem. Now, here is Jenn Psaki now. So the White House is dealing with this. They're trying to point their fingers. They're trying to point their fingers. What is happening? Why are so many Americans refusing to get vaccinated? And Doocey over here from Fox News has a suggestion. He is in the press briefing room with Jenn Psaki today and says, listen, Jenn, come on. How about this? Joe Biden wants people to get vaccinated. Donald Trump has been sort of, more or less okay with the vaccine. Was very excited about warp speed and all that stuff. What do you think? Could we get Joe Biden and Donald Trump together and get those two to powwow and just encourage American people to, get vaccinated? And here's that question.
On vaccine hesitancy, as COVID-19 cases rise, if this is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated and you guys are having a hard time getting a certain part of the population to go get the shot, would President Biden ever call former President Trump and say, I need your help, let's cut a PSA and tell people to go do it?
Well, first I would say that what we've seen in our data is that the most trusted voices are local officials, doctors, medical experts, civic leaders, clergy from
Facebook?
time to time. And that is where we've really invested our funding and our resources. We've seen almost every former president play a role in putting out a PSA, making sure people understood in the country that the vaccine is safe and effective. We don't believe that requires an embroidered invitation to be a part of. But certainly any role of anyone who has a platform where they can provide information to the public that the vaccine is safe, it is effective. We don't see this as a political issue. We'd certainly welcome that engagement.
We don't see this as a political issue. We welcome that engagement. We want all the help in the world. If Trump wants to help, Trump can come help, okay? All the other presidents have gotten their act together, but Donald Trump hasn't. So if you go ask him, why doesn't he make a PSA? And he can get out there and speak for himself there, Doocey. And she says, by the way, in this White House, we don't have to extend embroidered invitations to other former presidents. We don't give out invitations, okay? If you want to do your civic duty, you can go ahead and do it. But don't expect us to come crawling and begging and promoting you to sell the vaccine. We would never do that. Except when they did it right here, when they were trying to recruit Olivia Rodrigo to try and help them convince young Americans that the COVID-19 vaccine is good for them, right? So this is from PBS NewsHour. Jenn Psaki, I don't know if this was like during the same press briefing. It might have been the same exact one. Nope, she's in red over here and she's in green over here. So it's a different one. But this was posted earlier today, says the Biden administration has recruited this woman, whoever this is, young gal, 18-year-old pop star, to convince young people that the vaccination rates need to go up, right? Olivia Rodrigo is going to now lend a hand. So Jenn Psaki's out there. We don't extend embroidered invitations to anybody, okay? Donald Trump can go out there and do whatever Donald Trump wants to do. Unless you're an 18-year-old pop star who we want to go sell the vaccine to a bunch of kids, then we're going to go ahead and go out and go hog wild. So that's the White House. Little inconsistencies there, but what else can you expect? Donald Trump was out and, of course, responded to all of this. And Byron York over there posted this, said, hey, in a new statement, Trump attributes vaccine hesitancy to Americans not trusting Biden, which is the mirror image of what Biden and Harris said during the campaign, that Americans would hesitate to take the vaccine because they did not trust Trump. And so, you've been sort of seeing this from all angles over the weekend, if you were on Twitter or elsewhere. A lot of people saying Donald Trump should be doing more. And Donald Trump comes out and says, well, let me throw that right back your direction. He posts this on July 18th, which was on Sunday, said Joe Biden, this is the statement from him, said Joe Biden kept talking about how good of a job he's been doing on the distribution of the vaccine that was developed by Operation Warp Speed, or quite simply, the Trump administration. Not doing very well at all. He's way behind schedule. People are refusing to take the vaccine because they don't trust his administration. They don't trust the election results, and they certainly don't trust the fake news, which is refusing to tell the truth. So, right. So, of course, we have to disavow any election contestations. That election's over. And so just for you two, we got to make sure that we're clear about that. But what Donald Trump is saying, purposefully here is that people don't trust the Biden administration. This is the big crux of this thing. And, everybody's out there saying, well, maybe Donald Trump should be helping a little bit. Maybe if he would get off of his rear and get out there and start speaking on behalf of this, things would get better. But Trump is saying, listen, I'm just doing the same thing that you were doing. Back during pre-election, before you had won, you were out there saying a lot of the same things that many people today are saying, having a lot of questions about the vaccine. And listen, I am basically, I don't know what the phrase is, but I don't really particularly care either way, right? If you want to go get vaccinated, talk to your doctor, get vaccinated. If you don't, right? It's a personal decision as far as I'm concerned. I don't really have a strong opinion on it either way, other than the fact that I don't like it when it becomes mandatory. I don't like when anything from the government becomes mandatory, especially when it involves putting something in your body. But the rest of the conversation out there, right? I think it's a medical conversation that people should be having with their doctors, making the decisions based on their own internal analysis, based on their risk factors, And that's the rest of it, right? And I really would like politics to be out of it. I really would like it to be more about science that we keep hearing everybody's very, very interested in, but kind of turns out not really. So let's go and do a quick trip down memory lane and see what happened pre-election. Okay, everything changes as soon as one party wins political power. But what happens when they're not in power? What happens when Donald Trump is racing to get a vaccine in play and somehow it just comes out right after the election, right? Can't have good news, let's say in September or October of an election year, but right after that, it becomes available. In fact, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were vaccinated before the end of 2020. We're going to go through that. But once again, Trump says people don't trust this administration. Why might that be? Here's a supercut that came out over the weekend.
So let's just say there's a vaccine that is approved and even distributed before the election. Would you get it?
Well, I think that's going to be an issue for all of us.
If and when the vaccine comes, and it's not likely to go through all the tests that needs to be and the trials that are needed to be done. When we finally do, God willing, get a vaccine, who's going to take the shot? Who's going to take the shot? You can be the first one to say, sign me up. They now say it's okay. And the question of whether it's real when it's there, that requires enormous transparency. You got to make all of it available to other experts across the nation so they can look and see. So there's consensus, this is a safe vaccine. If the president announced tomorrow we have a vaccine, would you take it? Only if it was completely transparent that other experts in the country could look at it.
Yeah.
Only if we knew all of what went into it. If Donald Trump can't give answers and the administration can't give answers to these three questions, the American people should not have confidence.
But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
All right. Well, there you go. Right. So, they politicized it. Now they're coming out and they're saying Trump's politicizing it. And now the whole thing has become political because it is a political football. That's what this whole thing is about. It's become very politicized, which is very unfortunate. And the big reason that I've had, a lot of, I would say, issues with the Biden administration was because their messaging has been quite bad. And I want to just kind of run through the timeline. Recall this, that back in December 21, 2020, here's Joe Biden getting a vaccine on live television. This was posted by Kate Sullivan over at CNN. You can see the date here, 12/21/2020. The year wasn't even over yet. So Joe Biden had just won. All of that prior language that he was sputtering out during the election season about, well, I'm not real sure. Apparently he went and got it right away, right? On December 21st, he goes and gets it, and he's got his two masks on. You'll notice that. We've got a black mask over here, and there's a white one that's right underneath it. So I want to pay close attention to this, right? Because the reason that many people would get a vaccine is because it's going to give them a benefit. And one of the presumed benefits, of course, is that you don't catch COVID, and that you don't have to wear masks anymore, and that you can go and sort of socialize. You can go to restaurants and bars and enjoy your life again. Go roam free because you got the vaccine. This is how incentives work. If you want people to do something, you got to incentivize it. And so here's Joe Biden, right? Pre-COVID vaccine. He's just getting it, and he's wearing two masks. This is on December 21, 2020. So you would imagine that if you're the leader of the free world, that you would want to communicate to the world that your behavior is going to change because you just took something that is going to enable that. You just took the vaccine, so your behavior is going to change. You should get the vaccine so you can be like me, right? That's what a leader does. You walk the walk, not just talk the talk. And people want to get back to their normal lives. Remember, back in December, we were all beyond tired of this. We are all even beyond tired of this now, but we were extremely tired back then. And Joe Biden was first, but Kamala Harris was number 2. So here she is receiving her first dose of Moderna. And this was about a week later, December 29, 2020, here once again posted by Kate Sullivan. So she's just got vaccine shot duty. And so again, both of these people in December got the vaccine, Moderna and Moderna, I think it is, for both of them. So we go, okay, great. So they got the vaccine, and now things are going to change, and they're going to start being leaders, and we're going to start seeing, I guess, a return to form because the vaccine obviously works, because all of the medical scientists have said it, because our government officially endorses it, and so on. And so now everything would get better, right? Wrong. Nope. Joe Biden over here on the White House, February 18th, 2021. So almost 2 months after, a full 2 months after he gets the vaccine, he's meeting with labor leaders in the Oval Office, okay? He's not in a mall. He's not at a bar. He's not at a restaurant. He's in the Oval stinking office, the most secure building on the entire planet, unless it's being protected by the FBI, Capitol Hill Police, the National Guard, or any of those people. Then you can just kind of walk right in there. But ordinarily, it's pretty secure. And what happens here 2 months later on February 17th? Joe Biden, he's still double masking. Look at that. 2 masks on. He's got a black one and a white one on to match the suit. So he's got 2 masks on February 17th, 2 months later. So if you're thinking about getting the vaccine so you don't have to mask up anymore because it's a stupid thing to do, then that's your opinion, of course. Well, you look to the president and say, well, he got the vaccine and he's still vaccinated, right? You might say, well, I'm so dumb. That's why I need everybody else to tell me how to think. But I'm thinking that I can put those two together, that he got the vaccine and he's still wearing the mask, so maybe the vaccine doesn't work. Just logically, because if you got the vaccine and it protected you, if it immunized you, then you wouldn't need the mask. But here's Joe Biden, of course, wearing the mask. Now, it just didn't stop there. On April 28th, about a month later, 2 months later, we've got Harris. She crosses the Capitol Rotunda on the way to President Biden's joint address. And so I've always given them grief about continuing to wear the masks. But here it is, April 28th. She got vaccinated 3 months earlier, still wearing it, right? Still wearing it. And so when I would be critical about this previously on the show, people would say, or I posted it on Twitter, and people say, well, what about the vax? Who are you? You know, the masks or whatever. Say what you want about the masks. Okay. Right? I don't even have an opinion on whether they work or not. Don't even know. There's studies, I think, that say they do. Fine. Okay, I'll accept that as fact. I don't really care about that. What I think is more important is about the messaging and about what the Biden administration is doing. They're saying all this stuff works, and then they're literally parading through the Capitol building on her way to President Biden's joint address, and they're all masked up. So if you're just a regular, ordinary, everyday, average Joe American like me, you just go, well, I don't know why. I guess what's the point, right? You got to wear. If you get vaccinated, you got to wear the masks anyway. So what's the incentive? And then you might say, well, maybe that's just because they're politicians and they're just trying to show society what is important. So it's essentially virtue signaling, right? And that's been the excuse for a long time. Well, they're just doing it to make sure that other people, it's symbolic. It's sort of like we want people to wear the mask. Okay, well, if you want them to wear the mask, then I think you're probably sacrificing some people from getting the vaccine by that. So you kind of pick one or the other, right? Most people are not going to go out and race to do both. But the White House was, I guess, prioritizing the masks because at that point in time, recall, it had largely become sort of a social symbol. Right? People were flipping out in the grocery stores and killing each other over the masks. So they had to sort of continue that little charade for some time. Then we go over to the G7. G7 was just about, a month ago. Back on June 14th, they're still doing this, right? The world leaders. We don't see any masks in this picture, but we do in others if you look around the G7. But I took this one because I just wanted to show you kind of still what's going on here, right? We're still doing the elbow bump. We saw a lot of this goofiness over there. All of them vaccinated, of course. All of them still doing the goofy COVID stuff, whereas you would expect them to be like hugging each other, high-fiving. Hey, we just beat COVID. We've all got the vaccines. Good job. Go get your vaccine, and you too can be like us, your world leaders. But, of course, they didn't do that. Kamala Harris, also on June 8th, 2021, she was meeting with the Mexican president, and we covered that story here. Here she is in a mask. Okay, he is not in a mask, right? Because he is actually sort of leading his people. He's showing them, hey, if you get the vaccine, you don't have to wear a mask on. Probably wondering to himself, why are they still prioritizing the masks in the U.S. instead of sort of signaling that if you get the vaccine, you can take the mask off. So we have a literal side by side. Kamala Harris, doing the face mask thing, and another world leader who, in my opinion, is probably considerably more astute in his political career, of course, is not wearing a mask because he is the leader of his country. So let's see what you have to say about this. Any thoughts or any comments on this? How do you feel about the vaccine hesitancy stuff? We're going to take a look over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com and check out what's going on in the chat. We've got Farmer's Daughters here. We got Little Panda Cubs over there, and we have Be Brave and others. Let's go over to the questions on the form, and let me see what screen I put those on because I am all discombobulated. All right, we got first up in the house. Let's see what we have. We got Welfare Panda says, did you have a nice weekend? Panda, I'm watching you this show. So yes, I did have a nice weekend. This is what I did all weekend. I was in here all weekend moving stuff around and reconnecting the cords. You might say it really doesn't take much time to sort of move, so everything just kind of moved like 4 feet. But there are so many cables and so many screens and so many different things I'm plugging into each other. It's like, I'm surprised I got it all back together. But here we are, and I did have a good weekend, Panda. I hope you did too, Welfare Panda. Thank you. Let's see what else we've got. Let's see who else we... It's Panda. All right, we got Kareem says, I think we will always be under the illusion that times are not equally as bad as they were in the 1930s because we are slowly easing into it. It's like when you reach grade 12 and it seems like you were in grade 9, the students were in the senior year, then were older, even older than you are now, but they weren't. Yeah, it's an interesting observation. So the analogy that I've been using a lot lately is the frog in the boiling pot. Been using that one a lot. Sharon Quidney's here says, okay, so they spent all last year criticizing Trump vaccines and how they were no good because they came from Trump. And of course, there's the media echo chamber. So now polls show more Dems than GOP are vaccine resistant, and they're changing the narrative. Don't you love the way they mangle and reshape history? Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. You know, to the victor go the spoils. That includes rewriting history, right? The winners write the history books, not the other way around. Good to see you, Sharon. Let's see. We've got Edon Tess says, give us a 360 of your studio. Why? I don't know, because I'm curious as to what your digs look like. So I can't do that right now, but I will do that. So here's what I'll do. When I get it a little bit more settled up, Edon Tess, I'll make a video and I'll post that over on Locals. I'm going to do some more behind the scenes stuff on Locals anyways, but I just want to get this settled. I will do that on Locals. We have Arnie B5 says, you can set up a green screen behind you. You can have interesting videos appear while you're explaining your subject. Ooh, I like that. I actually have a green screen. When I buy stuff, I sort of have a problem with buying technology stuff, so I actually have a green screen. I don't think I've ever used it, but I have one. I have one of the ones that pops up, and so I could spring it up right behind me and cover up this entire background. But I just thought I'd let you see what's going on back there because it's a mess. Let's see. We got Peely Wally is here. Says, hey, Rob, keep up the good work and much love. In England today, they relaxed all COVID measures, which was celebrated as a win. But later in the day, Boris stated that vaccine passports would be needed to gain entry into nightclubs. They hope it'll speed up the vaccine rollout and letting people choose. But how about letting people choose what goes into their body? Thankfully, I'm in Scotland. We have no such thing yet. In the words of William Wallace, freedom. Yes, love that. Braveheart, I think, is my favorite movie of all time. That's typically what I say. It's typically Braveheart because I love that movie. Okay, great question or great comment. Thank you for chiming in. Good to hear you from Scotland. How cool is that? Yeah, that's a scary thing. We talked about this last week, right? The French president, Macron, came out and he said the same thing. Anywhere you go, you're going to need your digital passport, your digital COVID passport. And I said, canary in the coal mine back then, I said, watch the other dominoes start to fall. Here's England and the U.S. is next. We have who was that? Somebody in the Biden administration just came back out and is now sort of hinting that local mandates, local things like that are going to be more permissible. So we know where this is going. We've already seen this story. Here we are again. Sharon says, okay, here we go with the clampdown on freedom of speech because it's, quote, killing people. Just another brick in the new Stalinist Berlin Wall. Good to see you. We've got Want to Know says, the problem is the West Coast and the East Coast governors, when the vaccine first came out, were they going to do a 3-month study? Let's see. Okay, so no one knows what to believe. Too much lying and BS is going on. That's from Want to Know. Good to see you, Want to Know. We have Speech Unleashed says, maybe if we're being honest with the public, then people wouldn't be so hesitant. First, no mask, then double mask, then get the vaccine and you'll be fine. Then still wear a mask and distance, even if you are vaccinated. Now California is locking down again, even for those vaccinated. No wonder people are hesitant. And yes, so now the CDC came out and said, well, you don't need masks if you're vaccinated. But then from the first slide on this segment, we showed the person from the Biden administration who said, well, if you're local and you want to mask up anyways, then certainly you can. All right, we got Sharon is here, says, what surprises me is they're leaning on Farcebook rather than blaming Trump for all the information. And we've got Kenny1B says, I don't understand why folks think Snowden is such a hero. Only a tiny... Oh, this is for the next segment, so we'll get there. We'll get on to the next segment. Sharon Quidney says, it is certainly a political issue. All right, so let's see what we've got going on. I've got a bunch of questions, but they're a little bit out of order, so I apologize here. Federal Unemployment Tax Act says, people need to stop using Facebook. So they don't care about you. They violate your privacy. They gather data. They sell it, especially private messages. And they do other things on Facebook, which, of course, we don't want to talk about. Jeremy Matrita says the left doesn't understand human psychology. The more they try to push people to do things, the more hesitant they will be, right? And we say that a lot here. It's a program of attraction, not promotion. If you live a good life, an honorable life, and you do well, people will be attracted to that. If you speak admirably and you speak, I think, positively about certain things, people are more inclined to follow you, which we would expect from our leaders. But we don't have that. Ryan is here, says, I really hope I'm wrong, but I'm finding it hard to shake the feeling that Biden is doing what they can to trigger a violent uprising from red states. And given the red states have lower vaccination rates, all of these threats about going door to door, censor SMS and social media seem to be examples of this. This level of vitriol against individual choice is profoundly reckless, and Trump is 100% correct about it being due to a lack of trust. So it does sort of feel like that, right? A lot of these things I feel like are almost engineered to just kind of needle people. Now, I don't think that they're intentionally trying to cause a violent uprising in the red states, but I do think that these are strategic political maneuvers that they are using in order to achieve their political goals, which is what you do in politics. So I think what we're seeing here is absolutely concerning to a degree that I've not experienced in my lifetime. This has happened very quickly. And I've said this here on the show, I never would have imagined 2 years ago ever saying that we would not be, allowed to go out and do certain things. I just never would have imagined that, but here we are. That's our new reality. Medical Edward is here, says, Rob, how much of this disinformation do you think comes from the left in an attempt to use that very disinformation as a justification for censorship? Says, I think a lot of what was considered far-right conspiracy theories following the election was generated by the underground left to bait people into believing the stories they would share and to quote them, and then leftists jumped all over those people, called them quacks and discredit them. I agree. People need to make up their own mind, but people, please do research and verify sources. Don't fall for it. That is a good comment over there. Todd Trout's here, says, let's all take a moment to understand the centralist communist Chinese government gave us the virus. The decentralized capitalist republic gave us the vaccine. Ooh, that's a good comment there. Todd Trout. We're going to talk about China here in the last segment of the show because they're threatening to nuke Japan. So that's going to be fun. TOS Forever says Americans are able to think and make educated choices. I do not trust pharma, Greek for witchcraft. Is that right? I have not been sick since 1991. No putting drugs in my body, period. Pharma, is that Greek for witchcraft? Well, that is something, isn't it? Let's see. Jeremy says, Rob, I'm glad you decided to take advantage of your multiple monitors, but I think the panels looked great. Maybe you can have a large picture of Scottsdale framed and put a backlight behind it. Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. People have different takes on that. A lot of people really like the new version of that second studio that I was working from, but other people like the spaceship. So, I'm probably going to change it, I don't know, once a year because I'm weird like that, but we'll see. We've got Sharon says, hey, it makes total sense to keep on with the mask since the vaccine was produced by Trump, so it can't be trusted, but you have to get the shot because the current regime is promoting it. Yeah, it changed right after the election. Everything changed. All right, let's see what else. We're going to kind of see if we've got some other questions here. Wide Awake says, it's my birthday. Can I get a shout out? Shout out, Wide Awake. Happy birthday, Wide Awake. Woo. All right. So probably never going to sing again on this show. That's okay, though. Happy birthday. We have Joe Biden. Robute says, Joe Biden is a joke and a hypocrite. He is not going to stop with COVID, as Texas Democrats traveling to D.C. got COVID. Heard about that story. 5 of them, I think. Maybe they should have worn their masks on their chartered planes and stopped drinking that Miller Lite and partying out and having those, wild activities over there. The incentives to get the vaccine, such as not needing to wear a mask, not receiving COVID, not to return to work without being lambasted, are not there. Who would trust Kamala and Joe on COVID? Kamala is only good at... Oh, my gosh. All right. I'm glad all right. So good to see you, Robute. I always have to be careful with your questions. We have Farmer's Daughter says, Robert, my brother-in-law had a small tumor in his prostate for years. I'm sorry to hear that. His CA-125 was normal 1 month after his second vaccine. His numbers shot up. He's had to be catheterized. He now has 3 spots on his pelvis. Bit too much of a coincidence. Ish, yeah. Not good. All right. So those questions came over from watching the Watchers.locals.com. Let's see What else? I think we had a super chat come in from Zulu early on the show. Good to see you, Zulu. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And I'm grateful that you're here, my friend. So I'm going to figure out how to work those out on another show. But really, thank you, Zulu. I do appreciate that. And it's good to see you, my friend. All right, so we're going to change gears. All those questions came over from watching the Watchers.locals.com, and we're going to move on into the next segment. Thank you for all of your support. All right. Cyber security, cyber warfare, cyber surveillance. It's kind of the new word. Is this the new battleground? Many people are saying, well, it could be. I have talked a lot about the surveillance state here on this channel, and I've talked often about Edward Snowden, somebody who I think was a hero in many ways, somebody who helped to unveil what our government was actually doing behind the scenes. And once we learned what they were doing, we were all, I think, a little bit shook for a moment. And what we're seeing today almost feels like that, kind of on steroids. We just don't know about it. But there's a new story that is now spreading around the internet like wildfire. Edward Snowden, of course, first flagged this for me over on Twitter over the weekend. Says, stop what you're doing and read this. This leak is going to be the story of the year. And he links it to us, right? And so I think if Edward Snowden says something like that, it's probably worth a listen, given the fact that he also unveiled a story that was the story of the year, really the story of the decade, about what our government does and how much information they gobble up on a regular basis. So we're going to go through this story. It involves an Israeli security group called the NSO Group, which is based, of course, out of Israel. And The Guardian just revealed that they use this software called Pegasus to infiltrate and access your data basically wherever you are. They can actually send you a text messages or a WhatsApp message or use some other unknown vulnerability to get access to your phone, turn on your microphone, arguably turn on your camera, wherever you are. And they're actually selling this software, this technology, the ability to do this to people all over the world. And a leak happened, and we now know who's on that list, who is being targeted for these surveillance activities. So when this comes out, it's going to be should be a big thing. Let's dive into the story over from The Guardian. So it says, revealed, leaks uncovers global abuse of a cyber surveillance weapon. Spyware was sold to authoritarian regimes used to target activists, politicians, and journalists, the data suggests. So I want to make sure that we are understanding that sub-headline there. Spyware is being sold to authoritarian regimes that is targeting activists, politicians, and journalists. Okay, so if you have a tyrannical dictatorship and you have people who are fighting to, spread democracy, for example, then that authoritarian regime, the regimes that don't really value free speech, free expression, free association, democracy, those concepts, they can spy on the people within their countries who are in favor of those ideals. They can use this software and undermine their efforts. Let's get back to it. It's called the Pegasus Project. You can see this is part of a major stub over here, written by Stephanie Kirsch-Gassner. We have Paul Lewis. We have David Pegg, Sam Cutler, Nina Lankat, and Michael Safi. Okay, published on Sunday, June 18th, 2021. And you'll know many authors, right? You don't see often articles like this that have this many authors, but let's get into the story. Human rights activists, journalists, and lawyers across the world have been targeted by governments using hacking software sold by the Israeli surveillance company called NSO Group. We're going to learn about them. There was an investigation that came by due to a massive data leak. The investigation by The Guardian and 16 other media organizations suggests that widespread and continuing abuse of NSO's hacking spyware known as Pegasus, which the company insists is only intended for use against criminals and terrorists, right? So they're on the good guy side. Pegasus is a malware that infects iPhones and Android devices, enables operators of the tool to extract messages, photos, emails, record calls, and secretly activate microphones. Oh! The leak contains a list of more than 50,000 phone numbers that it is believed have been identified as those people of interest by clients of the NSO Group. So the NSO Group is out there. This Israeli spy company, they have all sorts of technology that they can use to get into Android phones and iPhones and just sort of somehow, sounds like remotely even, just turn on your microphone. Secretly turn it on. So they don't have to have access to this. Remember, we've heard a lot about these data problems for a long time here, where the FBI is trying to crack into the iPhone of somebody who shot. I think there was a shooting that took place in California, which is where this really all started to unfold. And Apple said, no, you're on your own, figure it out. So they're not going to help them breach their own security. But that doesn't mean that other companies don't have vulnerabilities that have not been released to the public. And so if this international group has these vulnerabilities, then they can just go and just remotely access your device. Previously, the FBI needed to have the device. Remember that? They needed to plug it in. The device was encrypted. They asked Apple for the unencryption key, and Apple said no. So now it sounds like they can just send you a message and turn on your microphone. Just start recording and downloading data from that. And they have a list of 50,000 people on whom this technology may have been used, according to The Guardian. Lawyers, journalists, human rights activists, everybody. Scary stuff. Who is the NSO Group? Let's go check them out. And you'll notice here is the headline of their webpage. Cyber intelligence for global security and stability. The NSO creates technology that helps government agencies prevent and investigate terrorism and crime to save thousands of lives across the globe. Well, that sounds nice. They're just stopping terrorism. We all hate terrorism and crime too. And they're saving thousands of lives. They're doing good stuff. They're doing good stuff over there. And funny, down here, they have this big bar. As soon as the article came out, I'm not sure if this was added after the fact, but they have this big bar down here that says, the first annual transparency and responsibility report. So as this, information of this leak slowly starts to make its way public, suddenly they come out, we have a report. We have a report that highlights the safeguards against the misuse of our technology, and it outlines internal governance and compliance processes. And they just did the first one this year because they know what's coming. They know what, we should probably, what should we do? They found all of our secret hacking files. What should we do? Let's create a committee, and we're going to call it the Transparency and Responsibility Report. And we're going to say we're going to do this annually. How does that sound? Brilliant. Yeah, it's great. Everybody at the conference room high fives each other. They go out there. They say, no, we follow the rule only being used for terrorists and criminals, and believe us. So let's see if you do or not. Totally up to you. Let's go back. Figure out who else they are. So they develop best-in-class technology to help the government detect and prevent terrorism. Use cases preventing terrorism, including gun violence, which is the word du jour from the new administration. Car bombs, suicide bombers, break up different types of criminality, find and rescue kidnapped children. So that's good. And we have assist emergency search in locating survivors. So I'm not sure why they need access to your iPhone for that. Maybe your GPS data, but you can choose Find My iPhone. Anyways, so that's what the NSO Group does. And here are their values. I always like values for firms. We talk a lot about them here. Accountability, which is something we talk about on the show, right? Accountability and transparency, shining that big, beautiful spotlight. They talk about excellence. They have boldness, of course, pretty bold in what they're doing, and integrity. Another good one you'll see often. Boldness, we believe in success comes by being intrepid. At the NSO, alongside a deep understanding of our business responsibilities, we emphasize being bold, yet being accountable. Well, we'll see if they stay true to that. So we've got NSO Group. We now know who they are. They had a list of 50,000 phone numbers that could have been clients or people of interest that were spied on by the NSO Group. So where did this all come from? Forbidden Stories is a Paris-based nonprofit organization. They are the presence of a phone number in the data does not reveal whether the device was infected by Pegasus. But the consortium of Forbidden Stories believes that the data is indicative of the potential target's government clients. So possible surveillance attempts. So maybe not everybody on that list was actually spied upon, but who knows? They might have been sort of in the bucket of potentials. Forensics analysis of a small number of phones shows that about half of them had traces of the Pegasus software. So maybe this is something that can even sort of cover up for itself. The Guardian and its media partners, listen to this, will be revealing the identities of people whose number appeared on the list in the coming days. So they're just going to tell you who's on the list. They include hundreds of business executives, religious figures, academics, NGO employees, so non-government organization employees, union officials, and government officials, including cabinet ministers, presidents, and prime ministers, folks. Prime ministers, presidents. You have an Israeli intelligence group who is capable of hacking into a president or prime minister's Android or iPhone device and turning on the microphone. Woo! Not good. The list also contains the numbers of close family members of one country's ruler, suggesting the ruler may have instructed their intelligence agencies to explore the possibility of monitoring their own relatives. Can you guess what world leader that might be? Are they doing business with North Korea over there? So the Guardian now is going to do the slow drip, which I just love. That just drip, 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 if they actually drip anything good. But here it is. Oh, we're on camera. Here it is over here. The disclosures begin on Sunday with the revelation that the reports of more than 180 journalists are listed in the data. Big number, 180 journalists. Ooh, including reporters, editors, and executives at the Financial Times, CNN, fake news CNN, the New York Times, France 24, The Economist, and the Associated Press and Reuters. Oh man, what's the media going to say about this? Aren't they like all in favor of rooting out harmful information? What if they say this is just harmful information? The phone number of a freelance Mexican reporter was also in the list, and NSO said that even if his phone had been targeted, did not mean that they actually had access to it. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got going on here. The consortium analysis of the leaked data. Now, I want to pay close attention to this. So this is a screenshot that came over from the Guardian article. And we can just kind of look geographically around the world and see who's on this list. It says the consortium analysis of the leaked data identified at least 10 governments believed to be NSO customers. So they had access to this software. We've got Azerbaijan, we got Bahrain, we got Kazakhstan, Mexico, Morocco, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Hungary, India, and the United Arab Emirates. They're all in there. So which is curious, right? You think, the Israelis are very close with the United States government in many, many ways, including militarily, including to combat terrorism. Would they be working with this organization? I mean, why wouldn't they be working with this organization? And why wouldn't this organization be working with other, allies of Western democracies, let's say, for example? So here we've got, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. Those aren't really seen as pillars of democracy throughout the world. So you're missing some of them. You're missing places like England. We're missing the United States. We're missing Australia. We're missing some pretty big players and some countries that are even a part of the Five Eyes Alliance. So why didn't they get the data? Why didn't they get the goods? My friends, I think this is just the beginning. That's the reason why it's not shown here, because we're talking about the dog that doesn't bark. We're expecting a dog to be barking here. We're expecting the U.S. to be involved in this, and they're not. Why is that? Weird. And also Australia and England and some of the other, allies that you would typically expect to find in some of the other surveillance states that we've talked about here on the show. They're not here. So is it because they're not involved or because they're not included in the leak just yet? Well, you can be, of course, the arbiter of that. Next up, we've got analysis of data that suggests that the NSO client country that selected the most numbers was Mexico. Both Morocco and the UAE had more than 10,000 numbers. So 15,000 over in Mexico, Morocco more than 10,000. A lot of people being spied on over there and in the UAE. We also have some data here. The phone numbers which were selected, possibly ahead of a surveillance attack, span more than 45 countries across 4 continents. More than 1,000 numbers in Europe, European countries, right? France, more than 1,000 over there. Here's some England, looks like. What else we have? Turkey, South America, and Mexico. Nothing in the U.S.? That's weird. Nothing in Australia? Curious. Well, let's see. Without forensic examination of the mobile devices, it's impossible to say whether the phones were subject to an attack. NSO has always maintained it does not operate the systems that it sells to vetted government customers, and it does not have access to the data of its customers' targets. So once it's out of their hands, it's out of their hands. It's up to them. If they want to spy on somebody, they're welcome to do that. In statements issued through its lawyers, the NSO denied the false claims that said it continued to investigate all credible claims of misuse. It said that the 50,000 figure is being described as exaggerated. The company sells only to military, law enforcement, and intelligence agencies in 40 unnamed countries. It says it rigorously vets its human rights records before allowing them to use its spy tools. Okay. Here's where it went to. Intelligence agencies, 51%. Law enforcement agencies, 38%. So that's scary. And military, 11%. Here's how it works. Attack vectors, Pegasus, can be installed on a phone through vulnerabilities in common apps or by tricking the target into clicking a malicious link. So it sounds like, right, they can just send you a text message, a WhatsApp, they can send you an iMessage, or just use some other unknown vulnerability. They can actually send that to you, meaning they don't actually have to jack into your phone. They can just send it. And then once installed, it installs the Pegasus spyware software, and then it can harvest any data from the device and transmit it back to the attackers. Other texts, other emails, other photos and videos. Activate the microphone, activate your camera, record your calls, everything and anything. They just turn it on. They can just see right there, probably see your screen, probably turn on the front camera and see what you're looking at as you're looking at the screen. Say, oh, he's looking at stocks again. Wow, those are not doing so good. But, they can follow you along if they wanted to. Wow. All right. By accessing the sensors in the phone, they can also log a person's past movements and track their location in real time with pinpoint accuracy for establishing the direction and speed a car was traveling in. The latest advances in the technology enable it to penetrate phones with zero-click attacks, meaning a user does not even need to click on a link for their phone to be affected. Guarnari has identified evidence that the NSO has been exploiting vulnerabilities associated with iMessage, comes installed on all iPhones, and been able to penetrate even the most up-to-date iPhone running the latest version of iOS. His team's forensic science analysis discovered successful attempts last month. So it sounds like they've got some pretty deep vulnerabilities in these different software. So I used to be an iPhone owner. When I was younger and, a little bit more naive, I used to use that operating system. So what happened is I became an adult and migrated over to Android. Wait for those comments. And I stopped using iMessage. But when I was on iPhone, I was a big jailbreaker. I used to love to jailbreak my iPhone and tinker around with it. And I had a lot of fun with it. I think it's a great platform. I just like to needle iPhoneers. But it's something that, it was always a cat and mouse game. You would crack the iPhone, Apple would update it, you'd crack it again, it would take longer, you'd have to, somebody else would crack it, update it, crack it, and there's a very, very geohot, very impressive man who was very responsible for that back during the jailbreak era. But it sounds like, all of those were public releases that many people were able to utilize and exploit, but these different companies, like the NSO Group, have their own vulnerabilities that they can use to, just sort of hack your phones, and they don't tell anybody about it. So Apple doesn't have the ability to patch them. The other exploits were public. GeoHot just released them. And so Apple would just go, oh, darn it, you found a hole in our platform. And so we would correct it. But the NSO Group, of course, is not doing that. They posted a response here. They say, following the publication of the recent article of Forbidden Stories, we wanted to directly address the false accusations and the allegations presented there. It says the report by the story is wrong assumptions and uncorroborated theories, that raise serious doubts about the reliability and the interests of the sources. After checking their claims, we firmly deny the false allegations made in their report. Their sources have supplied them with information which has no factual basis, as evident by the lack of supporting documents. Well, they said that more of it's going to come out soon. In fact, these allegations are so outrageous that NSO is considering a defamation lawsuit. NSO Group has good reason to believe the claims are made are unnamed sources. They're based on a misleading interpretation of data from accessible and overt basic information, have no bearing on the list of customers that we've worked with. The claims that the data was leaked is complete lie and ridiculous. Such data has never existed on any of our servers. NSO has said previously our technology was not associated in any way with the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. We can confirm that our technology was not used to listen, monitor, track, or collect information regarding him or his family members mentioned in the inquiry. Already investigated this. We would like to emphasize that we sell its technology only to law enforcement and intelligence agencies. NSO does not operate the system and has no visibility of the data. Right, so here you go. Kidnap children, survivors, right? Airspace, protect airspace, collapse buildings, right? All of the things that you would normally see to get hackers and pedophile rings and trafficking. Okay, so we're doing real good work out there. All right, so what do you think about that? Let's take a look at the chat over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com and over on YouTube now, because I've got that. I got multiple screens now, so I can see some of that. All right, let's see. We got Joe Snow's over there. Speech Unleashed is over there. We've got Baranski is in the house. He says iPhone is more secure than Android, but Is that saying much? Shrug, right? So it's kind of funny. All right, let's take a look at some questions and see what's coming in from the community over there. We've got a couple here. Grateful Panda says thank you. We have Savdi says, that's an old topic. We have NSO Group. I want to know says, doesn't surprise me that the Israeli have eavesdropping software. Sold it to some. Some Israels are the worst cabal in the world. Mossad went and killed terrorists in other countries. I'm sure the local police have this technology too. At least Stingray. Capitol Police need something to do also all over the USA. Yeah, it's a good point. Want to know. Yeah, so the police have a lot of this technology. It's called Stingray. We talked a lot about that on a previous episode. Kareem is here, says, the issue is I see that the next generation will be born into this, and for them it will be normal. Did you know when photography was first created, it was controversial? People were not comfortable with someone they never met, know what they look like, as if cameras are ever going away at this point. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true. It's a complicated thing. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, right? Kids are sort of growing up in a world where they're talking to these devices all around us now, naturally, in a way that I'm not comfortable with for some reason. I never talk to my devices. I have them everywhere, but I never talk to them. And other kids now, they just sort of do it all the time. It's kind of weird. And they're going to be more accustomed to that as the technology improves, which is kind of cool, kind of scary. All right, one Florida man says, how many people do you suppose are being spied on that are Trump supporters according to their social media posts? You have to be proactive when you're trying to prevent future insurrections. Well, I'm going to be a little bit offended if I'm not on that list, quite frankly. All right, which is why I'm of the perspective that I've always said I think the government is watching everything all the time. So I live a very boring life. All right. Good questions. Let's see what else is going on. We've got, oh my gosh, I've got so many screens. I don't know what to do with myself. All right. We've got another question coming in from Farmer's Daughter. Says, Robert, I remember when Biden was announced the winner, you were so sure it would take years to implement his policies. Man, I wish you would have been right. The thing is, we weren't aware how far ahead of the curve they were before they got him in there. Forgive you. Thank you, Farmer's Daughter. I appreciate that. By the way, regarding Friday's stream, I have so enjoyed seeing your evolution. So happy I found you enjoying locals. I'm grateful that you're here, Farmer's Daughter. Absolutely love you to death. I appreciate all your love and comments, and you're a lot of fun. You're always spunky in the chat and around, and so I appreciate it. Yeah, things are moving pretty quickly here, aren't they? And I did say that back in 2000, back during the election. It's like, well, how much are they going to get done by 2022? And I still kind of think that. I mean, really, what have they gotten done? Not much, right? A lot of it has been executive orders, a ton of spending. But they didn't pass their criminal justice reform bill. They didn't pass H.R. 1. The infrastructure deal, who knows where that goes. And so there's, a lot of the big issues that the Democrats are really excited about kind of stalled. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't very scary, problematic things happening. I also would not have imagined that the federal government through the White House would be coming out here and saying that we actually have to essentially censor social media companies. I mean, that's insane. And the fact that people are sort of clapping their hands like idiot seals, oh, yeah, take away all my freedoms and my liberties, no problem. It's insane to me, but they are, because they all have been indoctrinated to think that if you don't follow in lockstep with whatever your political party says, then somehow you're killing somebody, grandma out there, just for trying to live your life. It was a weird thing. I saw some woman on CNN the other day. Who was that? I can't remember her name. But basically talking about that, right? The default for existing in life is the default is you don't have access to freedom. We'll give you some freedom if you comply with our rules, like getting vaccinated, wearing a mask, doing all of these things we tell you to do. Then we're going to just kind of give you a little, here's another freedom for you. One more freedom token for you. You've been a very good boy. Here's one for you too. No, that's not how that works. Okay. We have had this conversation many times. The government exists based on consent of the governed. And there are many of us out there who say that freedom comes first. Freedom is the default. If you want to, tell certain people that there's something scary out in the world, they have the free choice to decide not to go out into the world. But the rest of us who also want to engage in our society, we start there. We don't ask for permission there. At least that's my perspective. The country seems like it might be moving the other direction, though. Not us here, obviously, but other people. All right. Robute is here. and I got to be careful with these ones, says, of course the government is such as the U.S. is spying on you. Tips include using Monero for cash for transactions, which is a cryptocurrency. Well, I'm not endorsing that or endorsing financial advice here, but there are a lot of tips here that you can use. A Pixel phone, Graphene OS are some of these concepts, prepaid SIM cards. Don't use SMS, use Signal, use Element for communication, JavaScript by default. You should write Robute, you should write an article about this, man. You know a lot about this. Avoiding spying is a pain, but he says Techlore, the hated one, has some extra tips on privacy and security. So pretty benevolent post there, Robute. Thank you. Techlore and the hated one has some extra tips on privacy and security. So go check that out. And thank you for that, Robute. Very, very good data there. We have another, already got that one. Jeremy Matrita says, ahem, no comment. Oh, that must be, is that an iPhone? Is that an iPhone comment there, Jeremy? I think it is. Well, let's see what else. No Doubt says, iPhone is more secure. So I knew it was going to turn into an iPhone conversation. iPhone is more secure, but it is standardized. It's also the bigger target. Android is easier to compromise, but the wide variability in implementations makes it less rewarding to compromise. Okay, so that's a good point, right? So you get sort of security by obscurity is the thing, right? There's so many different Android phones. There's Samsung and there's whatever the other ones are. I don't even know. I have a Samsung. All the other Android phones, there's like a million of them. And so each one of them has their own implementation of Android. So if you wanted to go and hack Android, you kind of have to be able to hack all of them. And since they all change it a little bit, it's kind of hard to do that. iPhones are all the same. They all run the same software. So if you get one crack, you can kind of take out a huge swath of iPhones out there. Last one on this segment says, Robert, I think you were talking to your devices right now. That's true. There's nobody else in here. It's just me. There's not another person in here. I am just talking to my devices. Fortunately, I think there's somebody on the other end, but I could be wrong, right? This could just be a giant ruse, and I could just be rambling to myself in here all day, which sometimes I do, but I'm not on camera. I just ramble to myself elsewhere. I just don't record it. Maybe I should record it. All right, great questions. All of those came over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com, and there's a lot of activity over there in the chat. Relic Hunter showed up. Good to see you. Zuck's over there, and some others. So appreciate all your support at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right, and so our last segment of the day, has it already been this long? Man, I'm losing focus because I've got all these lights, and I'm sort of discombobulated right now. I don't even know where I am. All right, so last segment of the day. Oh my goodness, what are we talking about? Okay. The U.S. government now formally accuses China of hacking Microsoft and theoretically many other platforms and infrastructure throughout the United States. We have spent some time on this channel talking about some of these hacks. Not all of them you can directly connect to China, but this has been a big topic that we've been spending some time about here on the channel and in the United States in general. We just came off the back of the Colonial Pipeline hack, which took out almost the entire eastern seaboard of the United States. We talked here about the SolarWinds hack. There are a lot of these ransomware hacks that are now taking place where people are demanding to be paid in Bitcoin. And we covered another case where the FBI seized some of that money. And the list goes on and on. We have also talked about the Chinese specifically poking and needling the United States in many different ways, talking about sending disguised fishing vessels over the Navy's Area 51, which is down, I believe, in the Gulf of Mexico. And also poking Anthony Blinken back during the Chinese-American summit, saying that basically, don't you threaten us. Don't you wag your finger in our faces when you got BLM and other issues domestically in the United States. So this has been something that has been bubbling for some time, not to mention the fact that arguably the entire coronavirus escaped from a lab out of Wuhan. Did an entire video on that on my second channel down in the description below. But now the U.S. is starting to formally accuse China of some malevolence. Let's take a look here. The New York Times gives us a headline, says that the Biden administration is also expected to organize a broad group of allies to condemn Beijing for cyber attacks. So they're formally accusing China of hacking Microsoft. And they're going to stop short, though, of taking concrete punitive steps. This is Amy Neuberger, Deputy National Security Advisor over for the Cyber and Emerging Technology. She's leading the response to the Microsoft hack. All right, so we're going to go through this here today. I want to start by going directly over to the primary source documents. This is the press release from the NSA and CISA and the FBI. This is the National Security Agency and the Central Security Service. Defending our nation, securing our future. NSA, CISA, FBI, they detail Chinese state-sponsored actions. They say that the FBI and others, they've released this advisory. It describes over 50 different tactics and techniques and procedures that the TTPs, that the Chinese state-sponsored cyber actors used when targeting U.S. and allied networks. Chinese state-sponsored cyber activity poses a major threat to the U.S. and allied systems. These actors aggressively target political, economic, like pipelines, military, educational, and critical infrastructure personnel and organizations to access valuable sensitive data. These cyber operations support China's long-term economic and military objectives. So, it's great now that the single politician who was the most hard on China is no longer in office anymore. Isn't that great? So we have Donald Trump, who from day one was really angry with China and wanted to make sure that the U.S. elevated its posture against the Chinese incursions. And for about 4 years, we didn't hear much from them, did we? It's sort of kind of around the margins here and there. And then COVID came and sort of Donald Trump got booted out of office. And here we are. The Chinese, in my opinion, have been slowly sort of needling us in different ways. And now the U.S. government is responding. So let's take a look and get some background information on what's happening with Chinese cyber warfare, because this is something that I think many people don't realize, I think, the scale of this. So I wanted to show you this over from Wikipedia. China is both the second largest economy and nuclear weapon state in the world. Second largest defense budget, of course, after the U.S. The operation warfare includes the concept of network warfare, which is roughly analogous to the U.S. concept of cyber warfare. So Foreign Policy magazine said that China's, quote, hacker army personnel range anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 individuals. Okay, that is a massive number of hacker army. Okay, not suited up in fatigues, not out there driving around in Humvees and tanks and working with M16s or whatever they're using these days, but actually a hacker army. Okay, it's massive. Western countries have long accused China of aggressive espionage, and while investigations have traced various attacks on corporate and infrastructure systems to have originated in China, it, quote, it is nearly impossible to know whether or not an attack is government-sponsored because of the difficulty in tracking true identities. China, of course, denied the allegations and as they always do, just blamed the U.S. They accused the U.S. of cyber warfare in China, which is what they always do. Antony Blinken went over to the Chinese delegation and said, will you stop treating those Uyghurs poorly? And they just responded back and said, well, you had slaves in your country there, so how about that? Right? They just turn it right around on you. And we've seen this from all of the other despots throughout the world. This is just something that they do. If you ever criticize their sort of modern day concentration camps, well, they'll just look back at something that happened 200 years ago in your country and kind of deal with that. So, all right, going on, we have some examples from cyber warfare. May 2014, grand jury indicted 5 PLA officers. So that's 5 People's Liberation Army officers. We have September 2014, Senate Armed Services Committee revealed hackers from China committed various intrusions to computer systems like airlines. Okay, not good. FBI added that hackers believe they were backed by the Chinese government have recently launched attacks on U.S. companies. 2015, U.S. OPM announced it was the target of a data breach, likely coming from China. FBI James Comey said it's a very big deal from a national security perspective and from a counterintelligence perspective. It's a treasure trove of information about everybody who has worked for, tried to work for, or works for the United States government. Guess what? Chinese have all that. So that's good. 2019 studies showed that they continued attacks on the U.S. Navy. 2020, February, federal grand jury charged 4 members of China's People's Liberation Army with the Equifax hack. Officials said that they got data on 145 million Americans, so likely in there if you've ever paid taxes. Voice of America reported that the U.S. intelligence agencies concluded that hackers meddled in both the 2016 and 2018 elections, and they were going to do it in 2020, but decided not to. They considered interfering in 2020, but decided against it, thinking it would fail or backfire. And then in April 2021, FireEye said that it suspected Chinese hackers used a zero-day attack against Pulse Connect secure devices to spy on dozens of government, defense industry, and financial targets in the U.S. Now, A lot. And they've got 50 to 100,000 people, if not more than that, working on it on a regular basis. Good news, though. The FBI's on top of it. They're going to fix it. They're going to fix everything because they're so great. Statement from the Assistant Director, Brian Vorndran, says that the FBI and our partners are determined to disrupt the increasingly sophisticated Chinese state-sponsored cyber activity. Targets U.S. political, economic, military, education, and other things. FBI remains committed to imposing risk and consequences for this type of repeated malicious cyber activity. We urge our partners to apply these recommended mitigations. Okay, so, I mean, I'm not too thrilled that the FBI is honest because I think the only thing that they do now is prosecute January 6th defendants. I think. I'm not real sure what else they do, but they're good at that and not good at a lot of other things. We're going to talk about another case tomorrow where one of the undercover FBI agents who was a part of the Governor Whitmer case just got charged with domestic violence or something like that. I'm not sure yet. We're going to read that story tomorrow. But my point is the FBI has been failing across the board. We've seen it. They couldn't even do anything to secure the Capitol Hill building. And it's just been a disaster, the congressional building. What a mess. Anyway, so they're on it. So they're going to be dealing with China. So great. You can sleep soundly at night knowing that the good old FBI is on top of it. Okay. Well, China is not just attacking the United States and not just pointing their fingers at our diplomats. They're also now threatening to nuke Japan. And I mean like actually nuke, not like, hey, we're going to, wipe you off the planet or some sort of bravado like that. It's like, hey, we're actually going to use nuclear weapons. And we know you've already been nuked before. We're going to do it again if you even think about incursions on Taiwan. And so we're going to talk about this here in a minute. Great follow over here from Jennifer Zhang. If you're on Twitter, she's over at NTD. She got this. She says, CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, vows to nuke Japan if Japan defends Taiwan, as Japan is the only country that has been nuked. So nuking Japan, quote, will get twice the result with half the effort. What? The Chinese people are actually saying that to the Japanese? Oh my gosh. Talk about bad form, right? It's like, oh, you've already been punished once before, so you're going to know what this feels like again. Therefore, we're not even going to have to worry about this. It's sort of inbred into your culture. My gosh. Whew, man, that is a rude statement. That's very, very rude. Not appropriate. Okay, so we're going to continue on. We're going to get to the video, I promise. This is an excerpt from a longer video. We're not going to watch the whole thing. It was uploaded 2 days ago. It has 2.37 million views. This was back on July 13th. And 11,000 comments, 88,000 likes so far. The channel has 2 million subscribers. Here's the original video, and here's the area of the world that we're talking about. Right? Some people kind of forget how close all of these different Asian countries are. But we have China over here. So it's sort of, here's Beijing. China, you got Shanghai down here, and then we have Wuhan over here, where the virus came from. They were claiming that it came over from some place over here, I believe, or the Hunan province, but it was over in Wuhan. No, the Yunnan province. I think this is where they were saying it came from, but it didn't. It came from Wuhan, and we know that. And so Japan is over here, and Taiwan is right here. And so there's been a big battle for a long time between Taiwan and China. China says that Taiwan is part of China. Taiwan says, well, not really. So we're kind of democratic. And so Japan, of course, is democratic. Taiwan, South Korea. We have North Korea over here, who's largely aligned with the Russians up this direction, and China over here. So we sort of see these fronts kind of forming right here, right? We got Japan and South Korea and Taiwan and the U.S. over this direction. U.S. is over here. And then we've got sort of the Axis powers over here, China, and well, Hong Kong used to be over on this side, but Hong Kong is now over here now, sort of aligned back over with China and Russia and North Korea, the Axis powers of the modern era. So, it's shaping up to be kind of like a war zone a little bit. And it doesn't help when China puts out videos like this saying, when we liberate Taiwan, this is going to happen. So here's what we're going to do on this video. I'm going to read the translation because you're going to hear it in English. I'm sorry, in Chinese, Mandarin. And I'm going to translate it for you. I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit if I can. And we'll just go through it. It's about 2 minutes. So I'll just read the whole thing and let's see what this has to say. All right, so here it is. When we liberate Taiwan, if Japan dares to intervene by force, even if it only deploys one soldier, one plane, and one ship, We will not only return reciprocal fire, but also start a full-scale war against Japan. We will use nuclear bombs first. We will use nuclear bombs continuously until Japan declares unconditional surrender. If we target Japan's ability to endure a war, as long as Japan realizes it cannot afford to pay the price of war, it will not dare to rashly send troops to the Taiwan Strait. In 1964, our first bomb was successfully detonated. We promised the world that we would not use atomic bombs against non-nuclear countries and that we would not be the first to use them. Nearly 60 years have passed. Although the strength of our nuclear deterrent has been somewhat affected, this decision has been a success and has safeguarded our peace when we built our country. Now the international situation has changed dramatically. Our country is in the middle of a major change that has not been seen in a century, and all political policies, tactics, and strategies must be adjusted and changed in the midst of such a major change in order to protect the peaceful rise of our country. It is necessary to make limited adjustments to our nuclear policy. We solemnly put forward the Japan exception theory. In modern history, Japan has taken the initiative to harm the Chinese people many times. So I'm not going to read this propaganda garbage. Talking about Taiwan, the war of invasion, right? There were all sorts of atrocities here. Got all that. Yeah, so you know, this is sort of dredging up. This is all Chinese propaganda that you see. If Japan goes to war with China for the third time, the Chinese people will take revenge on the old and the new scores. Japan is the only country in the world that's hit by atomic bombs and has a deep memory of the atomic bombs from the government down to the people. Can you believe that? It takes the United States lying down. It is exactly because Japan has such a unique feeling that nuclear deterrence will get twice the result with half the effort. Japan is now an exception. We're not going to use nuclear weapons in the world, but Japan is an exception. We are warning Japan, we're informing the world that if Japan interferes militarily in our domestic affairs, including the unification of Taiwan, nuclear weapons will surely be used and will be used continuously until its unconditional surrender. Propaganda, folks, Chinese propaganda. This is flying all over China right now, I'm sure. And this is a U.S. ally. The Japanese are, and this is a country that is across the pond from them in their military, saying we're going to nuke the hell out of them. I don't know if this is a common thing or not. I don't know if this is something that they do regularly, and the Japanese are just like, oh, whatever. Kind of a big deal. They're saying we used to have a nuclear deterrence policy. Okay, we used to say we're not going to use our nukes. Now we have a Japanese exception, and what are we doing about any of this? I would have to imagine you have to take them at their word. Or is this just regular propaganda that comes out of China? I don't know. But if they're saying that they're going to nuke Japan, that sounds like it is a pretty big problem. What's the White House going to do about it? Here's Joe Biden. Now, here's Joe Biden. So Joe Biden is out here now, and he's going to be asking about this. Surely our military knows about this video. It's all over the internet now. Spreading around China, talking about actually nuking Japan. What are they going to do about it? What's the White House going to do about it? Well, they're not going to issue any sanctions or anything, and they're not going to really do much of anything. Here it is. Wait. Let me turn the sound back up. I had to turn the sound down so I could translate. Let's turn that back up.
Mr. President, on China and cyber hacking.
She jumps up before you do.
Effectively, your administration is naming and shaming China, but no sanctions. Why, and is that effective enough?
They're still determining exactly what happened. The investigation is not finished. Thank you all very much.
Run away, Joe, run.
What is your understanding of the biggest difference between what they've done versus what Russia's done in terms of cyber hacking?
That'd take a longer explanation.
We have all the time in the world.
No, we don't. I have to go see the King of Jordan.
Just one quick follow-up on
Well, to the best of my knowledge, and I'm getting a report tomorrow morning on this, a detailed report, my understanding is that the Chinese government, not unlike the Russian government, is not doing this themselves, but are protecting those who are doing it.
Okay.
Maybe even accommodating them being able to do it. That may be the difference. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. So he comes out and he says, well, why no sanctions? Hey, your administration just came out and said that there were some big problems with China. So why no sanctions? What are you going to do about this? He says, well, we got a briefing tomorrow and I really don't know anything about it yet. And so he says, well, how about, China, kind of vis-a-vis Russia? Like, are they kind of the same thing, or what's your perspective on this? And he says, well, I really can't talk much about this because it would take a long time to answer. And the reporter says, well, we got all the time in the world, Mr. President, since you're the president, of course. He said, well, I got to get going. I've got another appointment with the president of Jordan. But then he says, well, here's what I know. The Chinese, like the Russians, may be harboring them, or they may be even accommodating them, which is, of course, what would justify some sanctions or some actions or something against the country in the world that is hacking your country's infrastructure, that is arguably responsible for releasing the coronavirus that wrecked the world, and that is now threatening to bomb with nukes one of our allies. Hope they figure it out. All right, let's see what's going on over at the watchingthewatchers.locals.com chat. I literally have so many screens here. I'm sort of like discombobulated. All right, so let's see who's going on. What's going on over there? We've got a couple. Oh my gosh, we got a lot on this one. Robute is there on the spying thing. Let's keep moving on. Yeah, so No Doubt says that we're all bots. Yeah, so that's what I figured. I figured everybody on here was a bot, obviously, because of reasons. All right, Lavoisier says China, never heard of it. I think you are referring to West Taiwan. That's right. I like that. I love that. I always forget that. West Taiwan, which really irritates a lot of Chinese. Says, I don't think that it's a good idea to nuke Japan, as the U.S. can obliterate China with nukes. But then again, Joe and Hunter are in China's paybook, so they may not retaliate. Yeah, maybe we'll lift some more sanctions. Lavoisier is here, says, seriously though, this is wolf warrior diplomacy at its finest. Xi Jinping is just bolstering, nothing more than a sniveling schoolyard bully. This one hits close to home though, because my fiance is from Kaohsiung, sorry about that, Taiwan. However, I don't think we need to worry. The people of the world are waking up. Considering the modern day concentration camps in Xinjiang, religious and cultural persecution in Tibet, mainland Asia border disputes, overfishing, social credit system, and major demographic issues, I don't think China's economic growth will extend into the future decades. China doesn't have many friends. The CCP needs the world. The world doesn't need the CCP. And I totally agree with that. I know a lot of people are really freaked out about China. I am too, candidly. I mean, my concerns with China are that they own a large part of our politicians. I mean, everybody really is afraid to denounce China. Even our sort of titans of industry are, right? Hollywood is scared. They modify the movies all over the place. You get guys like Mark Cuban who are like refusing to say anything that might jeopardize the market for their NBA product. And so the list kind of goes on and on. We have all these people out there, these human rights activists who are really concerned about all the horrors that happen around the world, unless it's going on in China. Then they just shut their mouths and they just go back to collecting their royalty checks from the Chinese. And it's concerning when you have atrocities happening in the world and you have people who are supposed to be fighting and working against those atrocities not saying anything about it. And that's where my concern is. It's sort of like, like many Americans have done a good job of papering over their relationship with a nefarious regime, and they're getting the benefits of that. But as soon as more and more of this stuff starts to come out, I think that I've always said this, right? The censors don't win. The totalitarians don't win. The people who want to take your freedoms away from you, people eventually rebel. They revolt. They have revolutions. They get tired of it. And what China's trying to do is strip freedom away in every way, shape, or form from their entire population. And there's 1.3 billion people over there. At some point, there's going to be a George Washington over there, or Paul Revere, or somebody who wants to see things change and liberalize in a democratic fashion, or a more capitalistic fashion. I think that is ultimately going to happen, but it may take 50 years. Who knows? So it is a very interesting region. It's one of the most interesting regions in the world, I think, because of all of the different actors that are in play there, and I think we're going to be paying a lot of attention to it for the foreseeable future. Want to Know says, let's see Russia, China-owned government hacking us. Biden just selling paintings to China, so nothing will happen. China already knows everything about us. Well, they hacked everything. Sharon says, gee, another about face for the Biden regime. I thought they were good buddies and bedmates with the CCP. I guess they must be racist and xenophobes and all kinds of evil, just like what they accused DJT of being. Or they could stop trying to siphon off some Trump supporters for their little commie cause by emulating Trump. Well, it's a good point there, Sharon. I don't even know what to say about that. It's great. Thank you for that. Good to see you. Sharon's here again, says the FBI. Are you kidding me? Does anybody believe anything the FBI says anymore? No, not really. All right. Hidden is here, says China is so aggressive. The moment Trump lost, they have consistently scaled up both rhetoric and a show of force, the army. I totally agree with that, right? Totally agree. You've seen that. They have been very flamboyant about it. They don't even just come right in your face and just say it. No Doubt is here, says nation state hackers are the most advanced and difficult to defend against. They have extremely high capabilities and motivation. China establishes 5-year plans for technology and intellectual property acquisition and follows multiple strategies to achieve the objectives of the plan. Many hacker organizations can be traced back to Beijing and operate a normal 8 to 5 hours. The nation state sponsoring hacking from China has been known for almost a decade now. Very, very, very interesting there, No Doubt. Thank you for that. I think that is a very astute observation. I mean, if you have 100,000 people and their entire job, I mean, it would be like running, how many employees does Target have, right? Target. I don't know, 1 million? Is it that much? Is it 100,000? I don't know. It's a lot of people. If they're all working towards hacking your adversaries, that's a powerful force. Very, very powerful and very scary. Rabute says, really, the FBI are so incompetent, they can't even prosecute all of the Capitol Hill rioters in the last 6 months. People's personal responsibility will help mitigate the cyber attacks. That's from Rabute. Savdi says, does this Chinese spying give more credence to the Trump suspicion of Huawei? Is Trump right again? Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on with that. I was going to clip them for the show, but I didn't. There are all sorts of things happening. So there's I think it's Denmark. There's a company there that creates these really advanced machines that are like the most complicated machines on the planet. And that's not an understatement. Something like $150 million for a machine that looks like a room. Kind of would be like an analogy would be to the very first computer that ever existed. Kind of like the size of a room, cost, a fortune. But there's a Dutch company that is using them to manufacture sort of the next level chips that we need to, build up our systems and things. And there was, I think the Trump administration just, one of the last things they did was to prevent them from engaging or to selling that software over to the Chinese. And I think the Bidens actually upheld that. So, the world is starting to recognize, I think, China for the threat that it is. Brian Hack is here, says, I will destroy the Chinese Communist Party. Every threat against Japan will be another cut I place on their body before they meet their maker. That's from Edon Test. That was a joke. It was a joke, right? Yeah, I think it was satire. Okay, the Chinese went bananas with their little propaganda piece. So is Brian Hack. Edon Test is here, says, you would think the U.S. would say something about the elevated rhetoric and call out China on the world stage, but this administration has no backbone whatsoever. No, they do not. It's Ed is here, says, now more than ever, we need a president with cojones. Biden clearly forgot where he left his. I really hope we vote for someone that can remind China that American men still have big cojones. Side note, China shouldn't forget. Yeah, Japan should not be trifled with. Yeah, he said that. Want to Know says, didn't under MacArthur we agree to protect Japan with the whole military force? Yeah, we're allies now. We're looking out for each other. Sharon Quidney says, one part of me says that we'll all be lucky to live through this catastrophic regime. The other part says, it's all political kabuki theater. Very well could be. Let's see here. Miss Lucky, 21, says President Trump would be taking a stand right away. Oh, my gosh, yeah. They would have never said that. That video would have never come out. And look, there's something to be said about that, right? There's something to be said about that. Super Iron Bob is here. That's outstanding. Says maybe if a party hadn't antagonized the Russians hardcore, we could have an ally against Chinese aggression. That's a good point, right? What did they call that? The taunt of, man, I took a class. What class was that? I can't remember what it was. But yes, right, you sort of move pieces around on a chessboard. Okay, bring the Russians to help neutralize the Chinese, but they're more aligned than than either one of them are with the United States, because both of them have been apparently, hacking our elections or something like that. Okay, a couple more questions before we wrap up out of here. It says, Todd Trout says, should we put Hunter in charge of China? Well, he'll make it a beautiful place. He can bring his oils and his canvases over there and just, paint for peace and unity. Maybe he can solve our world problems. And we got two more. Joe Biden will claim that it is because the Chinese government regimes needs better COVID vaccines, or it could be global warming. That comes from one Florida man. Good to see you, one Florida man. And then lastly, but not leastly, in the House, we have Hiding Out says, maybe Sleepy Joe can't threaten nuclear attack because China doesn't have control of the nuclear football. He's in China's pocket. He says, there are credulous reports that Trump is still in control of the nukes. Yeah, I've heard a lot about that. I don't think there's any merit to any of that, unfortunately. The election went the way that it did, and we all got to deal with the consequences. So I know that people are still, talking a lot about that, like there's something that might happen with the elections or the audits, and that might, sweep Trump back into power. I don't know of any legal mechanism that would do that. But let's see. I think those are, thank you for that, Hiding Out. And any other questions? I think we're good over there. Let's see what else is going on over in locals before we wrap it up for the day. Say goodbye to a couple people over there. We got Relic Hunter, Farmer's Daughter, Joe Snow's over there. Over here on YouTube, I'm seeing, I got K Beam. We got Zulu's here, says Rob. I think he's talking to another Rob. We've got Lil Panda Cub, Christine's in the house, Oil Smoke Jones, Hunter's here. Oh, Hunter's here. Joel Rowley's here, Shelby Indiana Jones, and many others. And thank you all for keeping the chats lively and a lot of fun. And let's see what else we've got. So we had a bunch of new people sign up over the weekend. I apologize. I did not add them to the list for the day today. Going to do that tomorrow. Wanted to give everybody who signed up last week a big shout out, because many of you signed up last week, and I wanted to give you just one more day up here on the board to say thank you before I update this tomorrow. We've got Robert Las Vegas. We got Mercurial Augustus. Lavoisier is here again. Dan Sundin. Drearier Spider. Florida Girl 41 signed up. Slim 5616. Salty Scotch is here along with Zoji, Mark and Mark, KCM 316, K-Cell, and the Great Bambino. All thank you so much for joining us over there at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. One final, not a final reminder, we're going to keep reminding you all week about this. We got our monthly meetup over on Locals taking place this Saturday. Oh, it's going to be fun, and I'm going to be doing it from right here. Hopefully I make it look a little bit better, but it's going to be on Saturday, July 24th, 7 to 8 p.m. We're going to be doing it over Zoom. You can have your camera on if you want, or off, no problem at all. We just kind of talk, just kind of take some questions, throw your hand up, and if you want to ask a question or drop a comment, or if you've got an opinion you want to share, if you got anything, right? It's kind of a free-for-all. So we'll do that 1 hour strict, so that we don't have to, well, we went longer than that. Let me just be fair, right? I said 1 hour, but it went like an hour and a half last time, because I like to talk, and I like to talk to you. So it's going to be fun over on Zoom. Sign up at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If you've already registered, you don't need to register again. You should be good to go. All right, so that is it for me, my friends. Thank you for indulging me with some of the technical difficulties today. I'm going to obviously get better with the new setup, and the background will be looking better in the future. Until then, we're going to be doing the same thing, same time tomorrow, 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And for that one Florida man, everybody else, have a tremendous evening. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.